Hi everybody, Trey Price here. I'm an extension research pathologist with the Macon Ridge Research Station, LSU AgCenter out of Winsboro, Louisiana. I'm here today to talk with you about soybean tap root decline, how to identify the disease and how to manage it. The first symptoms of taproot decline usually aren't noticed until pod fill stages when yellow plants become evident from a distance. In other words, from the pickup truck on the turn row. You'll notice these yellowing plants in the field, and you get out of the truck and go out there and look, and you'll see this interveinal chlorosis and necrosis on the foliage, usually throughout the entire plant. Kind of varies. This symptom varies with varieties, and it'll vary with intensity. You may find one plant in the whole field, or you may find 30% of your plants in a field affected. When you have this symptom type on soybean and other crops as well, you need to investigate further what's going on. If you've got this foliar symptom of the interveinal chlorosis and necrosis, that generally indicates a root or a stem issue. In Louisiana, it can be a number of different diseases if you have this foliar symptom type. But when you have these plants that are showing this foliar symptom, you can look down and part the canopy, and usually with taproot decline, you will find plants that have died earlier in the season, as evident by this picture in the top left corner. If you dig up around that plant, or if you dig up these affected plants, you'll usually find soybean debris from previous seasons in contact with the roots, and you'll have a blackened root system. That's diagnostic for taproot decline. If you look at the picture here on the right, we've got a plant that's in the process of dying during vegetative stages. So what happens is these plants die and they go unnoticed for a large part of the season when the soybeans are actively growing and their neighbors cover them up. So it's easily missed if you're not paying attention and scouting your fields closely. Taproot decline can cause death of the soybean plant at any point during the season, and a lot of people don't realize that it can be a seedling disease as well. So here are the typical symptoms we see on seedlings. You can see the picture there on the left with the mild interveinal chlorosis. If you look at the unifoliates have a unique symptom there that I've been referring to as interveinal mottling. You can dig these symptomatic plants up and you'll have that diagnostic black root there. And if you follow these plants during the season, more than likely they're going to die. I find dead seedlings in soybean fields all the time that are affected with taproot decline. Something we also see quite often are what's called, officially they're called stromata, but this is a sign of the pathogen. They're also called dead man's fingers and some other informal terms there. But we'll usually see these later in the season whenever the soybeans have lapped and we've had a period of rainfall or high humidity where that moisture's in the canopy, and the fungus is basically reproducing on that dead organic matter that we see often in these fields affected by taproot decline. But that is the pathogen. That is a reproductive structure of the pathogen, and that's also a sign to look for in fields that are suspected to have taproot decline. Teddy Garcia, a student in the Department of Plant Pathology down in Baton Rouge, has extensively sampled for taproot decline pathogen. If you look on the map here, you can see essentially everywhere where we've sampled for the pathogen and found it in the states that have reported it. We've got it officially reported in these 5 states. It would not surprise me at all if we picked some up in the Boot Heel of Missouri, southern Illinois, possibly Indiana, who knows, Florida and Georgia too. I would imagine that we could find it if we looked hard enough there. So we're waiting on specialists in those states to see if they have taproot decline in their respective states. Genetic analysis of Teddy's isolates coming from throughout the southern United States doesn't really indicate any you follow geographic structure, that is, all the isolates are closely related. And evidence from Teddy's work indicates a recent lifestyle shift from a saprophyte or something that feeds on dead material to pathogen. Teddy found some old samples in Herbaria that were labeled Xylaria arbuscula that turned out to be identical to our taproot decline pathogen. Those samples originated from South Louisiana from sugarcane fields and South Florida from sugarcane fields or other areas where there would have been saprophytes. Also, there was one sample, and these samples are old. These samples are nearly 100 years old. So one originated actually from the Caribbean. In these, for some reason, the taproot decline pathogen, that Xylaria species, at some point evolved from a saprophyte to a soybean pathogen, and we don't have a specific answer as to why it chose soybean at this point. Teddy Garcia has done a really good job of morphologically characterizing the symptoms and signs and the fungal pathogen. Some fantastic pictures here I wanted to share with you, and he's done a tremendous job on his graduate work, and we expect to have, he actually gets to name this fungal species, which is something a lot of scientists don't ever get to do, and he deserves a lot of credit for this work. We expect that name to be made public very soon in a journal, a scientific journal called Mycologia. So are you at risk for having a problem with taproot decline? Well, if you've planted soybean after soybean for two or more seasons, if you have a reduced tillage program where you've accumulated a lot of soybean and other crop debris, if you've got a GPS on your tractor and you're dropping back in and planting in that same exact furrow every season, and you have a susceptible variety, you definitely are at risk. Here's a little cartoon here where we've got all of our seed going back in the same exact spot every year. And if you place that seed next to the debris where the pathogen is harbored, you're going to have infection, or even a seed rot, or seedling infection, or later season infection from that pathogen. Taproot decline can cause some pretty serious yield losses in severe cases. Thankfully, most of the time when we find taproot decline, it is not severe. I mean, I would say it's significant, but it's not this severe. We've estimated disease losses by going in 14, 15 locations in northeast Louisiana and going out there and physically counting dead plants and incidents, and going out there and hand harvesting small plots and estimating yield losses. You can see that here on the right where percent yield loss with percent incidence. If you can expect anywhere up to 40% yield loss in the worst case scenario. Some work out of Arkansas, Dr. Terry Spurlock, he's used some aerial imaging to estimate yield losses. And if you look here on this graph, we've got 60 plus yields are yellow color to green color, and vice versa, going back from yellow to red. There's 60 and minus. You can see the yields, worst yields are in red. So this farmer right here in particular on this field on the left really took a bad yield hit in this case. All right, so the question is, how do we manage taproot decline? I get a lot of questions on seed treatment and in-furrow fungicides. At this point, we don't really have any solid recommendations on either one of those, seed treatments or in-furrow fungicides, but we continue to do the work. Here's a trial from Dr. Allen out of DREC 2018, looking at percent yield reduction, and the lower the yield reduction, the better the product performs. So the best treatments in this trial were Topsin, Top Gartera, Headline, Ridamil, and Circatus. And I need to note here that some of these products are not labeled for in-furrow use in soybean. We're going to continue to move forward with these actives that we're seeing some promise with, and try to come up with some solid recommendations for farmers. We had a really nice trial at Macon Ridge Research Station during the 2020 season. In this trial, we inoculated, which I'm sure Dr. Allen did too, but we had inoculated and non-inoculated plots, and basically just went in and rated for taproot decline and compared treatments here. Some things that stand out here: our yield is indicated in bushels per acre by these lines, green lines here. So we've got non-inoculated. There was no difference in the non-inoculated plots here. But the inoculated plots, you can tell our inoculum worked because overall yields were lower. In these treatments in particular, the Stamina, which is a seed treatment, same active as headline, Circatus, in-furrow, headline in-furrow, and Topsin in-furrow were the best treatments in this trial. Interestingly, the highest yields were with those 4 treatments as well. So we're going to move forward with some of the materials that we've identified over the past few years as far as potential management options for taproot decline. We hope to come up with a plan, and also we'll keep testing any experimental materials or anything that the industry may have that might provide some efficacy here. Another potential option are resistant varieties. Myra Purvis worked on her master's degree doing this variety screening in the greenhouse, where we took all the varieties that were in the official variety trials at the LSU AgCenter, and we screened them in the greenhouse. It took a considerable amount of time and work, but we did have indications that we have commercial varieties that are resistant or moderately resistant to taproot decline. Trick is these varieties turn over very fast, and it's hard to keep up with greenhouse screenings. Greenhouse screenings take forever to complete, so we're looking to do field screenings from now on. In field screenings, we did just that in 2020 at the Macon Ridge Research Station. We took essentially what was it was a copy of the official variety trial, necked it down to 2-row plots instead of 4-row plots, and we inoculated row 1 and we left row 2 non-inoculated. We put this in a field that has a history of taproot decline. It's been in soybeans for as long as I can remember, and we haven't had a tillage implement in there in quite some time, as you can tell by the flat rows. So if you look at the picture on the right here, we've got this inoculated row versus a non-inoculated row. With the inoculating these plots essentially guarantees us foliar symptoms to rate, or even dead plants. We had some pretty hot inoculum this year. Very, very pleased with how that worked. You can see a close-up of an inoculated plot there on the left, and you can see the foliar symptoms that I described to you earlier. The results from this specialized variety trial are posted on the web. You can go to LSUAgCenter.com, follow that stream there, topics, crops, soybeans, varieties, and click on 2020. And within that publication, our taproot decline ratings are there. The results are there by maturity group and variety, along with a lot of other disease ratings, as well as a salt tolerance rating that we're able to capture at Macon Ridge. I encourage you to check those out. What we're gonna do from here on out is we're just gonna keep doing that taproot decline specialized variety trial at Macon Ridge, and just keep posting those results on an annual basis. This is the only way that we can keep up with the variety turnover. And it's a snapshot in time, but it may give you an idea of which varieties to avoid in the case that you have a farm with a history of taproot decline, or you're concerned about this particular disease on your farm. Over the years, we've installed 2 tillage trials at the Macon Ridge Research Station, and both of those trials have indicated that any tillage operation, minimum tillage, which would be hipping up the rows in the fall, um, and planting in the spring, or just completely redoing, double disc and start over. Um, any tillage operation, anything that disturbs that debris will result in reduced taproot decline incidence. We've also found in a trial at the Macon Ridge Research Station rotation trial that a 1-to-1 rotation scheme with corn, grain, sorghum, or cotton will result in lower taproot decline incidence. Also, we see increased yield with rotation. So rotation is always the best management practice that we need to encourage with our growers. With that, I want to thank you for your support. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or your local pathologist. Have a good year.